So I am in Tallinn, Estonia right now. And yeah, so we just moved here in August. So this is my first year here. But my family, we're part of the foreign service. So we are, I call it the glorified gypsies. We're all over the place. Every 2 to 3 years, we are living in a different place. So this is our 7th country in the past 15 years. So I have 2 boys. They are now age 13 and 11. And so they have no normal. They've been all over the place with us. So talk about transitioning. They've definitely, we have given them many opportunities to grow over challenges. We'll put it that way. And I'm an occupational therapist. So I actually began this journey as an occupational therapist back in 2001. I graduated from the University of Pittsburgh, and then I went back to school in 2016 to get my doctorate from Chatham University, and I'm still practicing. I practice mostly with children, but I have actually switched just because of this crazy world I live in and always moving. I decided to focus more in helping parents to better help their kids, because I felt like that was a missing piece, which I see. Sharona is a parent coach, which is awesome, because parents, like you guys, when you are supported, it is so much easier to support kiddos. And that's what I do now. So I have decided to do this monthly meetup to bring different information each month, just to kind of help get information out there and have that discussion and talk about some different ways we can help our kids. So I'm hearing a little bit of echo. How is it for you guys? Am I kind of going in and out?
For me, it's fine. I can clearly hear you.
Okay. Everyone else, it's okay? All right.
Well, good.
Okay, perfect. If it is, just like put your hand up and then let me know if it gets bad, because we're in Estonia was an ex-Soviet Union country, and there are no landlines where I live. So I'm out of the city, so everything's Wi-Fi, so we're all battling for Wi-Fi out here. So I have my own personal Wi-Fi, and my family has their other Wi-Fi, but just in case, let me know. So today I wanted to talk about health of the brain, and a healthy brain and a focused and organized brain, because we all want that, right? We all want a healthy, organized brain. And I will tell you today, mine was definitely not the best, with lack of sleep, because I couldn't sleep last night. So we'll get into that about sleep. But one of the main things that I would work with my kids, including my own and then the kids I worked with, is helping them to feel in a calm, safe, alert state for learning and for doing things. We think of skill development as developmental skills and motor skills and cognitive skills and thinking. We tend to piecemeal sometimes development, but everything works together. And really nothing works well when we are in a state of overwhelm and stress. I mean, think about those days when you're calm, you're feeling good, things are just going your way. And then those days where you feel nothing is going your way and it's just crazy, you're just trying to keep up with things. When our kids are feeling that same way, it's much more challenging. So brain health and the nervous system has been a passion of mine since I started working, because that's where it comes down to. Our nervous system, how well our nervous system is working determines how well we're functioning in the world. And many of our kids that are hypersensitive, which is a lot of kids with ADHD, autism, and just children in general that have hypersensitivity. And I feel like more and more people are hypersensitive or have increased awareness of their sensory system lately, whether it's just I'm tuned into hearing about it or not, but I feel like our kids are getting more and more sensitive. And it can become overwhelming to our sensory system. So how can we help them and us to be in that state where our brains were feeling more organized and our brain were getting that healthy? So I could go in 1,000 different directions with this talk, because there are so many things that I could touch upon that really make a difference, but I'm going to kind of pick out 5 areas. And how I'm going to do this is, you know, it's the theory of what we put in, we get out, right? And so, you know, when you're filling up your car with gasoline, right? When you put premium, it's going to run better. Well, our bodies are kind of the same thing. You know, our bodies are going to react by what we put into it, both movement, so what we stimulate as far as movement, what we put in with food, supplements, minerals, but also what we put in thoughts and what we expose ourselves to. So we have to think of in that way. So we're going to touch upon that. So I'm going to give you 5 things that I really want to touch upon to help with brain health. But I'm not only going to give you information, but let's talk about how we help get our kids to do this with our kids. Like, let's be functional and brainstorm, like not only just here's the information, but where are barriers and where maybe we can, if you have a question, you're like, well, that sounds great, but I can't do it because my kid is whatever. Let's talk about it. So it's not only just here's the information, but how can we integrate it into our lives? Because information is nothing until you put it into action. So first thing I'm going to give you a couple key points, and then if you guys can jump in and share, because you guys are experts too. Like, you guys are here seeking up knowledge. So I know for a fact you guys have done research as well on just how to be healthier and help your kids. So I love getting feedback from you guys as well. So the first thing I'm going to touch upon is, well, the first is rest and reset. Now, our brains, our nervous system has that go, 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 that sympathetic, and then the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest. And the go, 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 the sympathetic is also your fight, flight, and freeze. Now, humans, we were made to be in that sympathetic state for not that maybe 15% of the day when we see something that we have to jump on or do, but the rest, right, we should be at this level of like calm and collected and organized. But I guarantee you, none of us are really like that anymore. Like, we are just go, 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 and we're reacting, and we're never just sitting and just not doing anything. There's really that balance. So our brains are made to go and go and go in the way our society is today. And so how do we bring in, especially for our kiddos that are like trying to hold it together all day at school, or when they're coming home and they're just exhausted, and then they're jumping onto TV to like decompress, which is not always helping the brain to decompress, right? It's stimulating more. So how can we balance that between the active mind and the restful mind? So I'll give you my 3 things, my top 3. So one is good sleep. That is one of the key things that all of us can do to help our brains, because our brains were meant to restore at night. Now, that's a good night's solid sleep without really waking up and getting in that deep sleep. Now, for years, I was going and going and going, and I was pretty much on that burnout stage. That's why I do this now. And I actually wasn't going into that parasympathetic state at night. My brain was just still going because it was so used to going. And it took me a while to retrain my sleep habits to be able to get really rested, to where I wasn't up with any little noise or any movement, because my system was so on alert. And so the sleep, and we can do that for our kids too, because their little nervous systems need that. So I'm always a proponent of my kids. They are always going to sleep at a decent hour. They are never, and even now my 13-year-old, like, he's like, I should be able to stay awake at 1, but he like falls asleep at 10 o'clock. Like, he can't, he's just used to it. So I try to teach that good sleep hygiene, because it really makes a difference. Does anyone have a hard time with their kiddos sleeping, or you sleeping? You guys are all good sleepers? Okay. All right.
I try.
Well,
I mean, but sometimes there are days that my sleep pattern is interrupted. And when it's interrupted, I can see the after effects the following morning, that my day doesn't really go well. I have two young kids, and two boys as well. One is a good sleeper. He sleeps on time and is an early riser. By 6, he's wide awake. Then he starts his day, of course, with his tablet and watch shows. But I realize that it's very key for all of us. Each day that we don't get our good sleep, we tend to be a bit, irritant to each other, and it kind of disrupts activities for the day.
Yeah. Thank you, Francis. That's a very good observation, because it impacts your relations. I thank you for touching upon that too, because it does. When we're tired and sleep deprived, we're cranky with each other. Very good point. Thank you for that.
Welcome.
Yeah. And Sharana?
It's Sharoya. It's okay.
Sharoya. Okay.
That's right. Yeah. So I was going to say, I'm at that age where the hormones are changing, and so my sleep has been affected, and it has been very difficult in terms of cognitive focus. I have struggled in the past few months with anxiety, brain fog, just because my sleep has been interrupted in addition to the hormones. But so it is I can totally relate to what you're saying.
And what I will do is I will send you an email with what I like to do is just take kind of key points for what I touch upon and send it out to people. But I also give resources. And there is a wonderful integrative health practitioner that I have recently been introduced. Her name's Melissa Daly, and she does some great segments on sleep and hormones, and she really is a wealth of information. She has a podcast, so I'll send that to you, because it is, she has some wonderful tips on that, because I understand perfectly what you mean. That is one of my challenges as well right now. It is, that sleep and changing in hormones. And it's definitely good to get them checked, because there are things you can do. And I'll give you that link for the podcast, because she
perfect. Thank you.
And Michelle says, does it matter how much of our time is in deep sleep versus light sleep? As long as it's sleep enough. Yeah. And everyone, it's just how you feel in the morning is going to gauge. We like deep sleep, but I would say sometimes deeper and shorter is better, but everyone's different. That deeper REM. Now there are things, and I've used this for my kids, and this is wonderful. So when we're asleep, our brains go into different brain waves, and it's primarily delta. Okay. When we're awake, usually kids with ADHD have high theta. There's theta, alpha, and delta. And with ADHD, that's that delta go, 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 go mind. And alpha's in this calm, organized state, and delta's in that really relaxed and sleep state. There are binaural beats, you can even look on YouTube, that have 10 hertz, which I use in the background to fall asleep. And those are wonderful, because what it does is it helps your brain to get into that state if your brain's been out of it for a little while. And so I'll put that in as well. But that's a wonderful sleep aid. So that is one, that rest and digest. So one is sleep. The other one is, so let's think of a restful mind, things that you can do just where your mind isn't having to work so hard. It could be a walk in the woods, which is so, so, so great on so many levels. The nature itself, I don't know if you've heard, in Japan, they're giving, instead of antidepressants, they're giving prescriptions to walk in the woods for 20 minutes a day. So the effects are the same as an antidepressant, just going into nature. So that's one I really, really, really like, is that walk and being outside. Gardening is a great thing because you're really not thinking. Walking, hiking, biking. And the other thing are certain exercises, because your brain doesn't have, sometimes it is thinking, but your brain's focused inward when you're exercising. So if it's yoga, you're thinking of different moves and postures, Tai Chi, Qigong. Those are great ones where that's restful mind. Qigong is an amazing, amazing exercise that I love, and I do it outside in bare feet, because it just, when I am in front of this computer all day long, that is my rejuvenation. Being outside, barefoot, doing Tai Chi or yoga, it really helps me. And then the last one, so the three things: sleep, a mindless activity where you're just enjoying, you're in the moment, even maybe painting with just colors. And the last one's meditation, which is a wonderful tool to just relax that brain. There are great apps. There's Headspace, there's Calm, there's great apps for kids. And I did, in an earlier meetup, I talked about the different apps for meditation, so you can find that in there. But that one is really, I mean, meditation, I could go on for years about all the benefits. It is absolutely amazing, but I'm just going to touch upon it. I do go further into meditation and other things, but meditation is something that really, for 20 minutes of meditation, I forget how many hours of sleep it actually equates as far as resting the brain, but it is a way to rejuvenate the brain. The second thing to help, so we have rest and digest, so that balance of between giving the brain just some time to stop. And as Michelle knows, my favorite thing is stopping, is that stop, rest, check in with yourself, take a few breaths, that even the breathing also can kind of reset your body and your mind to slow down. Those deep breaths where you maybe count in for 4, hold for 4, count out for 4, hold for 4, do the triangle breathing. Those are great to reset. Second thing, fuel, what you put in your body. So that is, there are foods that will increase your energy, just like there are foods that will decrease your energy. And, some of the foods I like, I've studied Ayurvedic a little bit, and the foods that take more energy to digest will take more energy from you. Those are pastas, dairy, grains. They take more energy to digest. So those usually, that's why you get tired in the afternoon if you eat a big thing of pasta and you're just like, oh, you're tired now. It's because your body's using that energy to digest it. Where fruits and vegetables don't take as much energy to digest. So they actually give you more energy, plus you get the nutrients and the minerals. So what you eat makes a difference. Have you ever heard of Jim Kwik? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like Jim Kwik's work. So he is a speaker, author, coach, trainer, and he is known as the boy with the broken brain, is how he refers to himself, because when he was younger, he had some brain injuries and he really struggled learning. And his theory, he's like, well, no one teaches you how to learn. They give you the information, but they don't teach you how to take in that information, how to remember that information. So he has some great strategies, but he also talks about brain health. It is how you use your brain, but also what you're putting into it. So his 10 brain foods are blueberries, broccoli, coconut oil, organic eggs because of the amino acids and the protein, leafy greens, wild salmon, turmeric, which is great for our kiddos too because of inflammation. Turmeric is an amazing supplement. I give them to my kids. I take it. Turmeric's a wonderful thing. Walnuts and dark chocolate. And Michelle says, recommend How Not to Die by Dr. Michelle Greger. Yeah, very good. An excellent health guide to eating, nutrition, and health. And so there are some great resources. One of the big things with kids, and I have been to so many different practitioners in just helping my kids' brain and helping them and myself. And, the big thing is those healthy oils. So I really do try those coconut oils, and even just putting it on the skin, it absorbs. So coconut, olive oil, cooking with olive oil, the oils are one of the big key things. If you can increase in your diet, will really help, because our brain, the neurons in our brain and the connections, the wires, they need that fat to make a smooth road. It's like putting that last little layer over the road to make it smooth and not bumpy when you pave it. That's what the fats and the oils do to our brain. It helps to smooth the connections and to make things be able to connect quicker. So avocados too. Avocados are great for that healthy fat. And hemp oil. I drink, my kids drink hemp milk because it has a lot of great things. So these are like little things that you can kind of just sneak in and they have vanilla flavored hemp milk. So my kids like it, you can just get it in there to help with just to nurture the brain and bring those nutrients. And decreasing. So if you're increasing the dairies and the grains, the processed food, which my kids love, and the junk food, obviously, those are things that less is better, but I am one, I can't take everything away. I believe moderation is a good thing. And so I do. And if you take something away, they want it more. So I try to, we don't celebrate with ice cream, but my kids have grown to like it, and they get their chances to go chase the ice cream truck, but we just don't have it every day to eat. So does anyone have any questions about those two? And maybe even questions like, okay, I've tried to get my kid to eat something and they won't, and maybe I can help through something like that. Or like my kids take a lot of supplements too, to balance it. They actually take a Rainbow Teen Brain and Focus, because it's just a safety net, just to make sure they're getting the nutrients. Because it's important to me that their developing brains are getting what they need to grow. And I think they're pretty smart most of the time. I don't know. Sometimes I question for the most part. I think their brains are doing pretty well. Okay. All right. So I will go. So that rest, digest, fuel what you're putting in. The other thing is movement. Movement is so important. My logo is the three swirls: the body, brain, the body, mind, and spirit. Like we are combined, and when we need all of those working well together. And so the body really, if the body isn't moving, the brain isn't moving as well. And so it's really important to move, especially for our young kiddos who are energetic enough and they're wired to move. And so movement is one. I really like different types of movement for different types of kids. So some kids that are having trouble focusing in that attention, if they can, martial arts is a great thing, because then it brings the energy in, it makes them focus on their movement. And martial arts I really like the Eastern traditions of martial arts, Tai Chi, Qigong, because I've been doing those for several years now, and I can tell you the amazing difference when I do them in my body. It's, the practice behind them is, and the theory behind it is, we're energy, which obviously we are energy. Our thoughts take up energy. Energy goes to our muscles, our heart's pumping takes energy. And Chinese medicine believes that some of the diseases are stagnant energy or stagnant qi. And martial arts, qigong, these are just ways of moving the energy. Now, with all of these, which I think is fascinating, is they also mirror, and yoga too has some of the same thing of moving stuff, but it's more qigong and tai chi. but there's a program called Brain Gym. Brain Gym was, God, it's been around for many years, and I do that with my kids, and it's based off of acupuncture points and qigong. And so we, in Brain Gym, what we do is we actually hit different trigger points to basically kind of wake up our brain and body. And we do cross crawls, so we do things where we're crossing our midline, which is so important for our kids, especially our kids that have autism. That crossing the midline, most of the kids that I work with, they have a left and they have a right, which they don't always know which is which, but they don't cross over a lot. Some kids I see do all things on this side, all things on that side. And there are even studies out of California that showed the area in between the brain, which is called the corpus callosum. It actually, there are structural differences in people with autism because they aren't having that information crossing readily from right to left. So any activities where you're aerobics or anything like that, when you're crossing the right and left is so important. Tennis is another one. Is a very, very good one. Hi, Michelle. Tennis is, oh, very nice lunch. I like that. Tennis is one that is a fantastic program. When I was living in Romania, there was a tennis instructor that was working with children with autism. And it was amazing at the end of her program what some of these children that could barely catch a ball were able to do. It was just phenomenal. And if you can find people out there that have the knowledge to work with children that need more patience and more assistance, I highly recommend using them and getting them to create these programs, because it is sports with these children and helping them to achieve tennis and things like that. It helps not only the coordination, but confidence. I mean, these kids, when they can do it, they're like, wow, they're just, it's so many levels. So tennis is a great thing. And for us too, I actually learned how to play tennis. That was when I turned 40. I decided I was going to learn how to play tennis, and I did. It was really pathetic looking for several years, but I'm getting better now. And I did try. I still haven't tried it over here because they don't have the nets in between the courts, and I still need that net in between, but I may try to get back into it now that things are easing up here. And so yeah, so our kiddos' martial arts is a fantastic, fantastic thing, movement. And then obviously, if we can decrease video and TV time, that also helps, because sometimes our kids, my kids, it's hard to do, but when they're watching TV, their brains, they're getting information in, but they're not working on things to problem solve. Does that make sense? So really having that break of TV, so they're doing something with their brain that's actually creating, it's really, really important. Because even video games, you may be playing, but it's different parts of the brain that are working. So the next thing's emotion or thoughts. Let's get into thoughts. So we did, first one was the balance between rest and reset, fuel what we're putting in, movement, thoughts. So our thoughts can either be healthy or unhealthy. And I think we all know that. We have those thoughts when we think we're like, yes, that feels so good. And then we have those thoughts that are like, oh my gosh, and just bring us down. I have a friend right now, and she is going through a big challenge with her son because her son's 13 and they're trying to figure out whether to stay with virtual learning because he has a lot of social challenges in school. And, a lot of people are dealing with that now, whether to go back into the school system where it's challenging and overwhelming for some kids, or stay with distance learning where it's less stressful, less overwhelm, and it's self-paced. And the challenge with her, though, is, and I think a lot of us do that, we have the thing we want our kids to be doing, but then there's the thing that they're actually doing. And we sometimes aren't happy if what we're choosing for them isn't matching what we want them to do. So I think she knows that distance learning is better for him, but she's worried about the social, which a lot of us are, you know, what will happen with that social piece. And, you know, but she's really focused on what she wants and the problem, that she's not able to think of the solution. And so sometimes when our thoughts stay on the problem and we worry and worry and worry, we continue to worry about it, but we never get to that point where we can have an open mind to see solutions coming in, because we're so focused on the problem. And that's something that we all do. It is just natural, because our brains, we're wired to focus on the problem, so we can think of what the worst case scenario is to prepare for, but sometimes we don't get to that point and we just get engrossed into the problem. And so we really have to watch that. And so, for instance, I had another client, her son couldn't ride a bike, and he was 12, and it was really hard for her. And she was always upset because he couldn't ride a bike with the older kids and he was getting too old, but she kept worrying about it. And she spent so much time and energy worrying about it that she never went and taught him. It was always in the worry phase. And so we can do that. It can be so easy to get caught up in that. And so we really have to be mindful of what our thoughts are doing, because that takes a lot of energy to worry. And it takes us out of that action, and then we just kind of stay in that loop because it never changes. So we have to be mindful of what our thoughts are doing. And so I know a lot of people, if you've heard me, I always touch upon this. There are thoughts that increase energy, such as gratitude, love. I mean, when you're feeling like someone just gave you the greatest gift and really gave you, you know, you had this great connection, and or you're doing something you enjoy, you love, you're in the moment, like that gives you energy. Feeling gratitude when you're walking down the street and you're like, man, things are really well, or I really like this house, or I really like, when you're thinking of the positive things around you, which most of us don't, because we're looking at what we didn't do or what we need to change, or you know, we're constantly looking at what needs to be different. But when you aren't in that state and you focus more on looking around and seeing things, oh, I like that picture, I remember going to that trip, that was so much fun, and stopping and taking those moments to feel grateful, that fills your bucket up, that energizes you. There's whole courses on gratitude journals. You know, there's a reason why gratitude has such a big movement, because it really makes a difference in our mental well-being. So I want to touch upon gratitude, and then and that would be the flip side, would be the negative thoughts, right? So how to change the negative thoughts would be switch to gratitude. So if you, so for instance, my son left today, and he was pretty much, at least I got him, he lost his shoes, brand new shoes I just bought. One I found in the yard earlier today, and I don't know where the other one is. So he will find it when he gets home. But I could say, and he wore his old tennis shoes today that his toes almost ready to pop out of. And I could get really frustrated and dig myself in a hole and say, oh, he always does this, and get really angry. Or I could say, you know what? At least he didn't mind. At least he didn't get upset. At least it didn't ruin his day. And he'll come home and find it tonight, and before he goes to bed. And luckily it doesn't get dark till midnight, so he'll have plenty of time to do it. So, so there's different ways of looking at it that are either going to make you feel really bad or a little bit better. So we just have to be mindful of how we're looking at things. So the flip side that I want to touch upon, that I think as parents we can really get into this, and there is the thought of, or attitude of, acceptance and resistance to what is. So they're the opposite. You either accept something or you resist it. Resistance is going to bring you down. When you are not happy because something is, I'm going to close this here, something isn't what it is, and you're constantly fighting that in your mind, that's going to decrease your energy. But if you accept it for what it is, that doesn't mean you don't need to change it or do things to make it better. It's just accepting it for what it is. Sometimes we never get to that. We want it to be a certain way and we resist acknowledging what it is now. And therefore it's much harder to change what you don't accept is true in the moment, because you're trying to jump ahead, and it's not easy to do that. And I have lived in that state for years. It's not easy. It is not easy to look at some of our own challenges inward or our kids in a way that is lovingly accepting the good, the bad, the ugly. But when you can do that with loving eyes, a loving heart, and then work to whatever you want to switch to, it's a lot easier, because resistance brings resentment. Resentment just, and I know Michelle's heard me about this resentment because it is a big thing. we can get in that resentment very easily, resenting the schools for not doing something, resenting, it's resentment. It's one, if we catch ourselves in that thought of resenting something, we need to check in with that thought and see how can we switch that to acceptance and then into changing from there. And the last one of the 5 is emotions. So which is kind of thoughts, emotions really are together. So the emotions, the higher energy that are better for our brain, are that love, gratitude, courage, and then the lower emotions that are going to decrease our brain's ability to think, focus, is guilt, shame, and resentment. So think of that when you're in, even, in grief. Grief is one, think about it. If you have a major event and you're in grief, how much are you able to focus on something? Not much at all. And I feel a lot of us parents, we can get caught in that grief loop of losing what we feel our kid could do without even realizing it. And so these are things that we just have to check in with. How are our thoughts? Because if we are in that, our thoughts are continuing to make us feel this state of shame, guilt, and resentment, we got to change that loop, because it will not get easier. It makes it harder to focus, harder to think, harder to be in the moment with our kids, with ourselves. So, a lot of people are like, healthy brain, food, and exercise. There's so much more to it. There is, at least in my mind, there really is so much more to it. And I'm going to teach you one of my exercises from Heart Math. I actually just participated in a summit called Proven, the Sacred Science. And it was a wonderful summit. And they were going through all different, more natural remedies and that have science and research behind it. And one of them is called Heart Math, which I am a Heart Math provider. And I love this because it really looks at your heart and your brain, and it's connecting. It's bringing that heart rate variability, that calm, loving state. And they have shown when you're in that state, the heart rate gets better. And when your heart rate's better, more blood can go to your brain, because then it's not going to the muscles that are pumping with cortisol and adrenaline, right? So one of the great exercises with Heart Math, it's called the quick coherence. And it's something you can easily do. You just simply put your hand on your heart. You can do this in the car if you're at a stoplight, somewhere, or you're going to shopping and give yourself a minute before you get out of the car and go shopping, like just that 1 minute. It's not that much, just before you get out of the car, and no one will even know. You're just sitting there. Well, unless someone looks at you and thinks you're having a heart attack, but most likely no one's going to even notice you sitting in the car. But just hold your heart and just take those. You can do the 4 breaths. They actually just say, take deep breaths in and out. I like the 4 count, and just think of something that brings you joy, a pet, a fun vacation, anything. And if you're really searching for something, because there were about 3 years that if someone would have said, think of something that brings you joy, I would have had no clue, honestly, because I would have, I had no clue at that moment. And I had a pretty darn good life, but my mind was focusing on all the wrong things and all of the challenges my kids were having. And it put me in a tunnel, and I couldn't see anything outside of that tunnel. And so start small. If it's petting an animal, something little, and work up to it. The more you strengthen that connection, you're thinking of something that makes you feel good, the more you can access that. And so that's the quick coherence. It's just checking in with yourself, bringing some joy. Michelle knows that. She's heard me say this a couple different times in different ways, because it really is so helpful. And what fires together is wired together. So if you can watch those thoughts, we're gonna have them, but when we have them, I go into, when we have them, accept them and start looking, see how you can flip it into gratitude. There is, if anyone's interested, I'm starting in June, the 3 R's, where we're doing the restore, reconnect, reinvent. And I just got done with the second segment, which is all about healthy mindset. So we go into deeper where we're going with that, with the autonomic negative thinking, and we go deeper into what to do with those. We go into reframing, so a lot of different tools to choose from. So if anyone's interested, I would love, I'm doing a foundation course now, and then the full course will be launched in the fall. But those people that are in the foundation get to be in there and work with me and be part of that. So you get to, because I do this for parents, and I am going from my knowledge, from my research, from my work, and from my experiences. But the more input, the more well-rounded it is, and I can make sure I'm reaching more and more needs of the people that need it. So that is coming. I can give you that information. So we touched upon a variety of things. So now if you guys want to open up, any questions, any feedback, any thoughts? Anyone? Sharia?
I don't know what. Yeah, when you were talking, I was steady writing it, because in my head, I just thought it really is a domino effect. And if we could just understand, if we can just take the first one, whatever our first is, whether it's to go on the walk and then hit it, and it gets the blood pumping, and then you get home and you have a bit of clarity, then you make a better decision. And then you feel good about yourself. And then you actually are pleasant to the kids. And you start receiving their appreciation, their love for just being pleasant. And how we can get parents just to understand it only takes the first domino. And the energy will just start to happen. And then, of course, when it slows down, you're going to take a moment and just let all the dominoes stand. And take a moment just to have that, and just say, I want to sit right here and do nothing. Mm-hmm. But then realize then again, it just takes another decision of small a small decision to get to that calm, that place of calm.
Thank you. I love how you point out that small decision, because that's how you start habits. You always start small and the brain learns you did it, and then you grow. And thank you. I really like how you pointed that out, and I love that example.
No, thank you. Because as you were talking, I'm steady right. I'm like, it's the domino effect. It's just really, it doesn't matter where you start on this, all these wonderful reminders you've given us. You can get that whole thing to fall down just if you start wherever you can, wherever you have the capacity to start.
Yeah. And whatever resonates with you. Everyone has their own path. You know, I just try to give a lot of different paths, so then they can choose which one's best for them, because everyone's different with what they want and need. Yeah.
Perfect.
Michelle?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Michelle, my dear.
So if I can pipe in, yeah, I just wanted to say, Sharoy, and the reason why I had such a big, huge smile when you were talking about the domino effect is because you were reminding me of something else that I heard from a military officer. I forget his name or his rank. If I dug hard, I could probably find it again. But he was giving a commencement speech to a university, and it might have been one of the military academies. I don't recall. And a big focus of his speech was make your bed every morning. And that may sound kind of silly, but I mean, his point was, if the first thing you do in the day, every day, is make your bed, then you will have started with an accomplishment and a success. And that is what builds you for more accomplishments and more successes through the course of the day. And it's so funny because, oh my gosh, when I was a kid, my mother was constantly on us about, did you make your bed this morning? My sister and I, we hated it. As soon as I went off to college, that became optional, you know, and for several decades, I kind of rebelled against that. And I was like, no, thank you. It really doesn't matter whether I have made my bed. But when I heard that, I was like, you know, this guy's got a point. And so did my mom. And I've been making my bed I've missed maybe 5 times in the years since I heard that speech. And I'm really glad that I'm doing it, because you're absolutely right. That's exactly how it works. Do one thing, just do one thing, and then more things can follow. Yep.
And that's perfect how you pointed that one thing in the morning. I think doing it in the morning helps us to feel control of the day, because you know, with kids that you're usually, you think you're behind that steering wheel, but they're the ones steering. And so, you know, having that first thing, and it's interesting because that is actually what Jim Quick has also given that same thing. He said the 5 things in the morning that he does, and one is making his bed. And the other is brushing his teeth with his opposite hand, because it makes the brain work in a different way. So you have to coordinate in a different way. Drinking water is another thing, first thing in the morning. And that's one thing, I'm sorry, as soon as you said that, I'm like, why? I forgot to put water in there, because water is so key to brain. And when we're dehydrated, like forget it. So yeah, water is a key thing. Thank you, Michelle. That was a really good, I like that, with the making the bed. And if you have older kids, so I had my kids watch some of the YouTubes of Jim Quick, and they watched the bed one, and my kids started making his bed after seeing that, because it's much more effective when it comes from other people than me. Like you said, I'm rebelling against mom, so I know I want to tell them these things, but as soon as I do, like, that's an immediate reason for them not to do it. So I always try to find external sources where they can get that information. Francis, any thoughts? You have little guys, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of information. I've been writing a lot of stuff down here. Some that, you know, I have already implemented. There are some that I think they are new to me as well. So I will discuss it, and we'll see how best we can implement some of those strategies in the family. You mentioned something that I made a note to ask you. You mentioned about the nutrition. You talked about ham milk. I don't know what it is. Can you talk about it? I don't know, maybe because of where I am in the country.
Yeah.
What's that?
Well, some kids that are very sensitive have some digestive challenges where it's hard for them to digest the protein casein. And casein is in dairy, in cow's milk. Not everyone, but I will tell you, like my son, my oldest, he had 6 ear infections from age 6 months to 1 year. Poor kid. Like we just went in for checkups, and they're like, he has an ear infection. I didn't even know. Like he always had ear infections. And actually when we stopped milk, the ear infection stopped. So, you know, a lot of kiddos you will find are very sensitive. Not everyone, but I know for myself, you know, and for him especially, like when he ate ice cream, the dairy and sugar combination, woo, we were driving home one time from vacation and everyone was having ice cream, so I couldn't say no. And so he had ice cream, but he literally talked non-stop for 2 hours. He was, I think, 2.5 in the back. I mean, he literally maybe it was 3.5. No, he was 3.5. I mean, would not stop for 2 hours. His brain just, you know, so people react differently to different things. And it's just to be mindful that some people are more sensitive to the dairy. So, and I choose to do the almond milk because almond also has a lot of nutrient benefits, where the almond and the hemp versus the dairy too, just with what they're getting nutrient wise. So that's for my choice, but you know, everyone has different reasons, but just kind of letting you know, some kids, it can affect them, that dairy, to kind of bring in that, the brain fog. And then the grains with the wheat sensitivities, a lot of people have that now too. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
Daryl, Maria, Gypsel, if I'm saying that right? Jeanette?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, Gypsel is right. Yes. Oh, I have a lot of experience. I have one daughter, but she's already 23 years old. And she had the diagnosis of autism spectrum. And my little boy had the diagnosis with ADHD. So yes, I when I started with my daughter and all this journey, it was for me like go to the hill and you don't know what to do. After that, it was for me finding resources and all the information and everything that I need for her. I decided to go to do my bachelor in psychologist to understand more about behavior. And after that, I got my master also in my clinical. And now I can help not only my daughter and my son, also I can help all the kids. And as you say, you have to be resilient and if you continue working. Yes, it takes time, like typical to a typical child. For this, it really takes time. It's like when one of my daughter took it maybe 2 weeks or 1 month to potty train. We heard it was a whole year. It's taking time. It's like it means Hans said that it's a domino effect. They depend how you work, it's coming back to you.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. That's so wonderful how you wanted to figure out the behavior aspect of your kiddos and went on to get your bachelor's and master's. Wow, that's great. That's great. Where do you live right now, Gypsel?
And here in Florida, I live in Long Lakes.
Okay, very nice. Well, thank
Yes,
you.
but my office is in downtown Tampa.
Oh, okay, Tampa, very nice. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Tampa's on my list of places to go. I have a friend who keeps posting beautiful pictures of Tampa. I never knew how beautiful actually Tampa was, but she keeps posting beautiful pictures. Maria, anyone else? Janet, Daryl?
Oh, so thank you. It was interesting to hear the confirmation. So for me, because of sports and my mom, I had to make my bed every morning. So that's something that just stuck with me. And then because of the sport that I did, the coach always told us we had to brush our teeth, with our opposite hand in the morning, just so that you could do the techniques on both sides. So just getting that confirmation was that it's also helpful for just other personal um, achievements, but was really good.
Good, I'm glad. Yeah, it's interesting how many things we probably learned along the way that we've kind of forgotten to, bringing those little things back. Yeah. All right. Well, if no one, Maria, Jan, if anyone else wants to chime in, you're welcome to. I will. So what I normally do is I do just a little quick synopsis video of just, sometimes I share this recording, sometimes I just do a little presentation, it just all depends. And then I kind of share with the people that couldn't make it. And so if anyone has any questions, and if it's okay, if you want me to, you can put your email in there, because I don't email anyone that doesn't give me permission. So if you want me to send you information on the upcoming course that I have, I feel free to put your email in there and I can just send you that information if you'd be interested. The basis of what I do is I'm very into co-regulation, and I know for myself, I was in such a place of state and overwhelm for those years that I wasn't there for the kids that needed me, because I couldn't. I mean, I was just not in a state. And so now I want to help parents, just like Giselle, I want to help parents to get into that state, to help them with what they're stressed with, to help that co-regulation. And there's so many steps to it, and there's a lot more than just information, because you really can't, stress comes from so many areas. It's like, our thoughts, what we put in, but it's also not knowing what to do in the challenging moments. So there's also parenting tips in there, and, and how to get back to ourselves, like Sharia said, like it is, it comes down to when we take those moments to make ourselves happy and reconnect with ourselves, we're happier, and then we're happier with our kids, and then they're happier being around us. And it's a loop. So this is a journey that I've created where we kind of go through it together, and there's accountability too, because sometimes we have great intentions. Me too. Like, I have so much in here, but what comes out in action sometimes it doesn't always happen, because life takes you this way. And so sometimes it's easier, to do it with other people. And so that's part of this, is we are creating our path, our own path. We're taking, the similar path together, but we're creating exactly what we want to focus on in those paths. And together we're kind of going through those changes, so we can be the change we want to see with our kids. Because if we want to teach our kids to self-regulate, we got to self-regulate first. It just is not going to happen if we're not regulated. So, but to get regulated, it's not just, okay, let's be calm. It's just, no, that's not how it works. It takes time, tools, practice, support. So that is my goal, because my big thing, I finally figured out what my thing is. It's stress less, love more. That's pretty much what it is. That's what I want to see in the world. Like, less stress, more love. It's so much nicer. My kids like it better. They definitely like this version. I hope, I think I'm still going on my versions, but this is definitely a much better version than 5 years ago. For me too, included. So if I can help anyone on that journey, go ahead and put your email in. Aw, thank you, Michelle. Yeah, you're right. And I was listening to something today, audiobook, Brene Brown, and she was saying about that state of anxiety. And it's a state, it's not who we are, it's a state of being, and how that state of anxiety is contagious, just as calm is contagious. And we have to just be mindful what we want to share with other people. So we have to, touch in with ourselves to make sure, we can have that calm. And it's much nicer, it's much easier. So I'm glad I finally get to see your son who's walking in the background, Michelle. So. All right, well, it was a pleasure meeting you guys. So if you want to join in next month, I will be here. So I have some emails. I'll go ahead and email information. And it was a pleasure. You guys have a wonderful day and
You too.
have a good day. All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.